What's up, guys, and welcome back to a special job site edition of the Concrete Edge right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's show we're going to be going over 8 of our most helpful tips when using color hardener, so stay tuned and you're going to learn all about it. So we already have tons of videos on our channel about color hardener, going over all the benefits, going over a bunch of techniques. There's honestly some other videos that are similar to this one, but we figure we can't have too much content for this because color hardener is just such a great way to color and stamp concrete with. So the whole point of this is to try to help you guys through that so you can learn how to use this properly and love it as much as we do. So tip number 1 for using color hardener is understand how much it actually takes to properly cover the surface. And this is one of those things that we see all the time. People have, a 500 square foot job and they come in and they order 1 or 2 buckets of color hardener, and that is just not enough to get it done. So you're going to get about 100 square feet per bucket out of color hardener. Now that's on average. This color we're throwing today is really light. We're probably actually going to want a little bit more than that. So this slab is about between 350 to 400 square feet. So we know we're going to need at least 4 buckets, maybe even 5, being that it's this light of a color. So this little corner of the slab here is 100 square feet. This is a 10 by 10 area. And think about this, just this little area is gonna take an entire bucket of color hardener. If we don't get enough on there, the color's not gonna be right, and we're also not gonna get the full benefits of the hardener. All right, tip number 2 is throw your color hardener in 2 passes. Remember we just talked about that 100 square feet per bucket? Well, if we try to throw all that on at one time, that is just too thick and it is not gonna go well for us. First of all, it's gonna be really, really hard to actually rub that in and make it one with the concrete when it's on there that thick. The other thing is, if we just try to throw it all in one pass, there's no way that we're gonna get it completely even, and now we've used up all our color hardener. We have more than we need in one spot. We still have light spots in other areas, so always throw in 2 passes and try to keep it to just 2 passes. We don't want to extend this out into 3 and 4 passes, because by the time we get to there, it's gonna be really hard to work in. So the key to this whole thing is that we want to use approximately 70% of the color hardener on pass 1, and then we're going to use the remaining 30% on pass 2. So for example, this slab, let's just say it's 400 square feet. We're probably going to throw about 3 buckets on our first pass here. We're going to float it in, and then when we do that, you're going to see spots that are colored really nice, and then you're still going to see some gray spots. And now on pass 2, we can use that remaining 30%. We're just going to focus on the gray areas, because the areas that look good, they're already good. So always 2 passes, use about 70% the first pass, 30 the second pass. Tip number 3 is to start throwing the color hardener as soon as you can. This is a pretty small job and a lot of it is in the shade, so it's a little bit different for us today, but on most jobs, when you're wide open in the sun, well, we're not gonna have time to pour the entire slab and then go back, start cutting borders, start throwing color hardener. For the most part, we would recommend just having somebody that's outside the pour that can start floating and start throwing color hardener right away. So tip number 4 is to always start throwing at the farthest point and work your way back. If I just start throwing right here and then work my way that direction, all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna end up with so much color hardener right here, and I'm just gonna keep getting more on the more I throw. If I start back there, I'm gonna be coloring this somewhat the entire time, and then I'm gonna work my way back. So this is gonna make sure I don't run short on hardener, and it's gonna make sure I don't need more than I need right here, and it's gonna make sure that I get nice, even coverage. So always start at the farthest point, throw as much as you need, work your way back towards you. So next on the list is make sure that you give the color hardener enough time to absorb some moisture from the concrete and let it fully wet out before you try working it in. Now this is one of those things that if you mess this part up, you will know instantly, and it is going to be a terrible, terrible day if you try to start floating in dry color hardener. And so you guys can see here that, this color hardener, when you first throw it on, it looks dry and the color looks really light. And then as it sits here for a little bit, it starts to change color, get a little bit darker, and it kind of looks like it's damp. And we have got to wait till we get to this point before we start working it in. So next tip is use a resin or a wooden bowl float for this. Normal magnesium floats, they're just not gonna work as well. Now, if you're throwing color hardener every day, go out and get yourself one of these resin bowl floats from Craft. This is a great tool. Magnesium is just gonna wanna slide over this too easy. There's not gonna be enough friction, and it's just not gonna work that color hardener down in well enough. So always use a resin bowl float. So tip number 7 is to always have some kind of finishing aid on hand. And man, the slab saver from Deco-Crete just works absolutely great for this. You know, this isn't one of those things that you're always going to use every day on every job, but man, in the summertime when the sun's on you, a little bit of wind, something like slab saver is going to get you through this job, so you don't ever want to leave home without it. Not only is this going to actually add a little bit of moisture to the surface in a safe way, but it's also going to just set that top back just a little bit. You know, color hardener, it is absorbing moisture from the concrete, and that surface can tend to crust over just a little bit more than normal. And so this finishing aid is going to help us work it in, but it's also going to keep the top nice so we can get it stamped with the least amount of tears. So, last on the list, guys, tip number 8 is always make sure that you've got some extra weight around for your bowl float. This stuff is going to get to a point, and we're kind of getting there right now. We've got, you know, a full broadcast, 2 full broadcasts of color hardener on here. You know, the concrete's starting to get a little farther along, and just a normal bowl float by itself just isn't quite going to be heavy enough to work that stuff down in. Now, we don't want to use these in the beginning, because at that point the concrete's too soft. It's going to make our float too heavy. That's why, you know, I don't like just going to a really heavy bowl float, because we don't want that in the beginning. But something like this solves the problem completely. These little guys here fit right in the channel on the Craft bowl float. They're made by Craft. Now, of course, form pins and some blocks and stuff would work, but these things are 5 pounds a piece. They work absolutely perfect, and they fit right in our float. Well, guys, that is a wrap for this week's show. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to tune into this video. Man, I gotta say that we really do appreciate all the support that you guys show to the channel every week. So, from all of us here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.